Hey, what's going on, you guys? Hey, welcome back to another episode with iTrek. Big shout out to all the iTrek fam that is currently tapped in. And if this is your first time here, what we like to do is take a look at the most interesting and creepy videos from all around the internet. Got a handful of interesting ones today. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button for me. Smash that subscribe button to join the iTrek fam. Stay up to date with the latest and greatest. Smash that hype button for me as well. And let's just jump straight into it.
So if the movie Shazam with Sinbad never existed, then what is this? And if it was never Berenstain Bears, but rather Berenstain Bears, then what is this? And if Jiffy peanut butter was never a thing and it's always been Jif, then what is this? If Fruit of the Loom never had a cornucopia, then what is this? So all of this evidence comes from a creator on here who's been cleaning out his grandfather's house who just passed away. And as he was posting all these videos, I saw Mama Matrix, who's like a bigger like kind of conspiracy creator on here, repost these clips as well. And the initial caption, she had tagged him in it. And when I went to go click on his page, it had been banned. And I found it looks like he has another page up now. But it's interesting how like he was silent when he started speaking the truth. Because Selena Gomez was never wrong when she said everything is not what it seems. And I'm keep telling y'all, you got to question everything. Because what the
Finally, some irrefutable proof. People love to throw out scenarios and all kinds of conspiracies, but they have no proof to back it up. We are definitely living in the Matrix, man. Let me know what you think about it.
Started doing the test tube babies back in the 70s, I think 1978. But I saw two of the test tube babies and they both looked the same. That's what blew my mind. But you gotta realize they don't have any seeds, no souls. Anytime they grow a baby in an incubator or they clone one or they do manipulations, there's no soul. They're soulless. Do you know what that means? That's like MK Ultra. I can send you out there to kill all these people and you won't feel a thing. You won't feel a thing because you have no soul. You don't reincarnate. No karma, nothing. It's just a body, a carrier. Say I clone you right now and you walk out there and you kill a whole lot of people and the cops kill you. That's it. And nobody cares because you can create another one in the lab.
24 months, there will be not one person in this room that will be able to tell when they watch a human in a video if that human even exists, let alone if it was generated by AI or generated by your hands in Adobe, thus rendering you to having to make a choice that you either trust nothing or you realize whether I, Gary, as a human am modeling this hoodie or whether it's an AI version of me that doesn't exist. We're in a place where every video on the internet, you will not believe what the person is saying because you're not sure if they actually said it. Because you know that there's technology now that allows people to make videos of me saying egregious things that I've never said. AI is an insanely enormous wave that is coming right at you. This AI one, this is not the iPhone, this is not social media. This is much more internet. This is big. This is the rest of your life. And professionally, it's going to impact you, but even personally as a human being, all of you have one of two options. Option one, you are going to put your head in the sand and your overall strategy is, or two, you are going to grab a surfboard and you will ride the largest wave that has come at us since the internet itself, and you will be highly successful and you will enjoy the ride.
Now, if you've been watching my channel for any period of time, you've noticed I put a whole lot of clues, hints, and facts all throughout the video so that you can see AI is here and it's not going anywhere. And we will definitely have a new way of life. So hopefully you've been making that pivot.
This is why everybody thinks that tomorrow or Wednesday will be the end of the world. So this South African pastor had a vision and a dream. He had a dream where God appeared to him and told him that he is coming soon. In some of his visions, he could hear the sound of the 4 trumpets. He relates this to the book of Revelations, where trumpets are being heard or sounded before the end of the world. And people believe this to be real because the dates September 23rd and 24th align with the Jewish New Year, which some Christians associate with the end of time prophecy. Now, in his visions, if this all comes true, he warns of a demon that will come down just like in the movie This Is the End, chase and consume the remaining humans that have not been raptured. So that's all of you sinners. The pastor also mentioned these dates specifically were given to him by Jesus and God during his visions and dreams. to warn all of us to prepare to be raptured. So if you haven't asked God for forgiveness for your sins, probably now's a good time to do it. But what do you guys think about this?
It sounds like it might be capped to me, because if he is following the Bible, I think in the Bible somewhere it says no man knows the hour, the date, the time. There won't be any hints given, none of that. It'll just be a surprise, like that. So I'm thinking it's more capped than anything else. But let me know what you think about it.
Locals couldn't believe what they were seeing. A man standing in the middle of the street, frozen mid-step. One leg forward, one behind, like he was walking, but just stuck. He didn't sway, didn't blink, didn't even flinch when people walked by. It was like someone had hit pause on his body. Naturally, someone pulled out their phone, and the video took off. Some say it was a stunt or a muscle disorder. Others are calling it a glitch in the Matrix. A tiny hiccup in our so-called reality.
Nah, I think he was on a mission for some drugs. That's kind of what it looks like to me.
2027, the year everything changes. We have talked about the idea that open contact is about to happen, is imminent. Within 2 years, they will be officially introduced to your society. At first, most likely hybrids, Pleiadians, and then others.
Massive breaking news from Göbekli Tepe. They found a human statue in one of the walls yesterday. They completely took it out very carefully and they took it to the Schönlerfa Museum. And I will show you Göbekli Tepe in a little bit. The day before we arrived, yesterday, when they found the human statue, the Princess of Japan was actually here at Göbekli Tepe for a ceremony that was commemorating the finishing of the excavations there at Building D. I am currently at Göbekli Tepe. And so this is where they found the human statue yesterday that they took immediately to the museum after they took it out of the wall. But you can see that they're clearly still working really hard at the renovations, reconstructions, the cleanup, continuing, and up on the hill they're started to excavate as well. So on top of the hill they think that those are the settlements and that they were overlooking the temple of Göbekli Tepe back in the day, like what, 11,000 years ago?
The real reason why cartoon characters wear white gloves is way more disturbing than you think. So everybody's familiar with this very specific style of white glove that a ton of classic cartoon characters wear, but not many people really question why they're wearing the gloves. It's just how it always has been. Unless you're the character Bobby from an extremely goofy movie who jokingly asks this exact question.
Do you ever wonder why we're always, like, wearing gloves?
Yeah. That's just a funny little gag, but it's a good point. Why do they wear the gloves? Well, a lot of people will tell you it's so the character's hands can stand out from their darker bodies, which made it easier for animators to make them more expressive and to better convey the things that they were doing with their hands. And while that's technically true, it's only half of the story, and it leaves out a very important and very disturbing detail. Cartoon characters wear white gloves so that their hands stand out against their black bodies because blackface minstrel actors from the 1920s and 30s wore white gloves so that their hands would stand out against the black paint on their faces. Because many early cartoon characters like Mickey Mouse, Felix the Cat, Bimbo the Dog, and Bosco were blackface minstrel characters. That's right, Mickey Mouse was originally intended to be a parody or an homage to vaudeville blackface actors. You see, in the early days of cartoon animation, before TV existed or they were even being regularly played in movie theaters, animators like Winsor McCay, creator of Little Nemo, would take their cartoons on tour with vaudeville shows and literally project them on stage on a screen. They would even sometimes interact with their animations. And the most popular part of these vaudeville touring shows was the blackface minstrel act. And so the animators, trying to grab the audience that was there to see the blackface minstrel shows, would pattern their characters off of those blackface actors. So the cartoon characters would take on the physical traits of these blackface actors, like the dark black skin with the white or red mouth and eyes, and also the personality traits and tropes of blackface minstrelsy, like the mischievous trickster character, which was very common in blackface and was also what most cartoon characters in the 1930s and 40s were. This minstrel style of cartoon character carried over from the vaudeville era of animation to the film era of animation with characters like Mickey Mouse and Felix the Cat. And after a while, blackface minstrel shows obviously fell out of favor and people just kind of forgot that they were like that. So the style of the character became solely associated with cartoons. And that's how we ended up with generations of these cartoon characters with these inexplicable white gloves. And again, many people will tell you, no, it's nothing to do with blackface. It's so that their hands can stand out from their bodies, but that's just not historically accurate. And here's the thing, I love animation like many people, and I love many of these characters. I'm not trying to get anything canceled. I just think it's important to be aware of these things. And real quick, if you like my videos and you want to see more in-depth writing from me, you can do that here.
Nah, I definitely agree. I think it's important to know the history on everything so that we're not living in any kind of ignorance.
You can predict how long somebody's going to live by their grip strength. It's crazy, but there's an interesting scientific study I just read, a 40-year study. The current findings suggest that having good grip strength and a long-lived mother may indicate physiological reserve and inherited resilience to aging processes. So it's two things. Interesting, the study says how long your father's side lived is not as important. Very interesting. So get your grip strength up.
Did you know that the Ouija board actually named itself? So the woman that created the Ouija board was using it one day and just straight up asked the board what it wanted to be called, and it spelled out the word Ouija. Oui meaning yes in French, and ja meaning yes in German. So a lot of people interpret this to mean that the board was identifying itself as a sort of spiritual being that kind of transcends all languages and knows all things, like omnipotent, if you will. So this woman, her name is Helen, she takes the board in to get a patent for it, but the guys at the patent office just laugh her off. The clerk there pretty much said, "Look, lady, I don't know you, you don't know me, but if your silly little board can spell my name out, I'll give you the patent for it." So according to legend, Helen sat the board down, put the planchette on top, and the Ouija board spelled this man's name out in front of everyone. And that is how we got the patent for the Ouija board. Now, the spookiness doesn't end there, because the board would be manufactured by two men before it fell into the hands of William Fuld. And William truly believed in the powers of the Ouija board because he himself used it all the time. He recognized that the spirit attached to the board, or whatever he was communicating with, had some type of special knowledge, so he used it to ask for direction. Well, one day, according to William, the board told him that he should go and buy a second factory in Baltimore so that Ouija boards could continue to be mass produced on a larger scale. And he did just that. William bought the second factory to manufacture Ouija boards, but sometime later, he was supervising a project on the roof of the building when he fell from the third-story building, landing on the street outside, and a piece of his broken off rib pierced him in the heart. Now, William did not die. Not right away, at least. He was able to make it to the hospital, where he told his family to promise that they would never sell the brand Ouija. He didn't want anyone outside of the family to handle the production of Ouija boards. It was literally his dying wish. But 39 years later, to the date of William's tragic passing, his family sold the patent of the Ouija board to the Parker brothers. Now, the Parker brothers were based out of Salem, Massachusetts, and they spent a hefty $1 million back in 1966 on the Ouija board patent, which is actually the most that anyone has ever paid for a game patent. Interestingly enough, and a little bit of a side note here, Ouija is actually the only other quote-unquote board game, if you can even call it that, to ever outsell Monopoly. But the Parker brothers would eventually go out of business, and the Ouija board would then start being produced by Hasbro, who still owns the rights to it today. While I've never actually played with the Ouija board because I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to stuff like that, I did actually find an antique Ouija board in the drywall of my bedroom closet, and I've talked about that here before. But I've also heard horror stories from people that I know that have played with Ouija boards, and I can tell you guys those if you want to hear them. Otherwise, if you've had a scary experience with the Ouija board, please, please, please send them to me at this email, because I'd love to read through them and potentially share them here with my followers if that's something you guys are interested in.
Now see, if he would have asked God about what to do, I'm pretty sure God would have told him not to do any of that, right? So whatever was on the other side of that Ouija board giving him these instructions and these answers, they knew exactly what was going to happen. It sounds like it didn't even turn out well, because they end up selling the building, and this, that, and the third went on. So it's a lesson to be learned in that if you're paying attention.
Oh, que porra é essa?
Hey now, the guy who tattooed the word crud on his forehead to win $250,000, only to learn it was a prank.
The first listener to tattoo the letters KRUD on their forehead would win a $250,000 prize. I lost my job because of this. My girlfriend broke up with me. My dating life's been a shambles. I wanted to use this money to help save our home. The biggest thing about it is the tattoo laser removal surgery that I'm going to need to have.
Yes,
the
sir.
procedures. I can't afford that. And from what I understand, the research that I've done, it may not even be possible to remove all of this without scarring.
This is David Bell, and in 2019, a local radio station named KRUD announced that the first person to tattoo their letters onto their forehead would win $250,000. When David heard about this, he was really excited at the time because his dad had recently gotten fired from his job, and their family was at great risk of losing their house. When David called the radio station and was informed that the contest was completely real, he immediately rushed to the nearest tattoo parlor. Since the radio station even had a website for the contest, Mr. Bell figured it had to be real. But when he dashed over to the station to claim his money, everyone there just started laughing at him. And it turns out, at the very bottom of the website, there was a link that led to an April Fool's page. But since Mr. Bell had vision problems, he hadn't seen the tiny link. And when the radio station told him it was all just a prank and refused to pay up, he sued them for $510,000 and ended up winning.
And in your favor, I'm going to award $250,000 for your damages, $10,000 for your future medicals, $250,000 for pain and suffering, for a total award of $510,000.
As of today, David has since had his tattoo completely removed and paid off his parents' house entirely.
Now, I ain't gonna lie, he took an L on that. But why would he make the letters so big? And let's be honest, $250,000 isn't a lot of money. Maybe 10 years ago, it might have been a lot of money, but nowadays, it's just not a lot of money. And I won't blame him because everybody has a price, right? Because for $10 million, I might just go ahead and do it, but like real small, right? Like real small right here. But now be honest with me. Are you going to go ahead and get KRUD right here on your forehead for $250,000? Is it enough money for you? Be honest.
Say that consciousness lifts itself out of a body is a very bold statement.
Yes, near-death experiences are for real. About 45% of people having an NDE do indeed describe consciousness above their body. By the time I see that in thousands of experiences, you've got to go back to that core scientific principle that what is consistently observed is real. We have scores and scores of these out-of-body experiences where the consciousness can travel city blocks, observing ongoing earthly events, retaining that information of what they saw, almost invariably accurate down to the finest detail.
You said you had this fly out.
93 UFO occurrences in an hour. You might catch me outside, but you'll never catch me anywhere near Joshua Tree if that's what's going on. I ain't gonna lie to you.
The PDOOM number? Yeah, I think there's a 25% chance that things go really, really badly. You know you're playing with fire when the people building it have a score called the PDOOM, which is the percentage chance that this ends in disaster.
Okay, so this is never before seen footage of a portal opening up near Thunder Mountain in Sedona, Arizona. You can clearly see a buddy of mine, David, put an infrared security camera on his roof and captured this portal opening up above his house. You can see orbs coming out. This is never before seen footage that was shot in Sedona, Arizona.
Watch out for frenemies. A frenemy is someone who they smile at you, but secretly they're competing with you. And if you start to kind of pull back the curtain on the psychology of it, they admire qualities in you that they wish they had. And so there's this initial admiration that starts the friendship, but over time, they start shifting into envy. And that envy starts to turn into sabotage. They really want to be close to you because they're drawn to what you represent. But the irony is that the closer they get to you, that triggers their insecurity because it's reflecting back what they feel they lack. So they live in this weird contradiction. You know, on the surface they're supporting you, but there's this underlying resentment underneath it all. Can't have a true friendship with someone like that because there's a part of them that's secretly rooting for you to fall.
You seem to be suggesting then that the mind has a language of its own, independent of the language that the mouth uses.
Yes, right. You can think of it as mentalese.
Mentalese.
The language of thought. And I think speaking is almost like translating mentalese into English or Japanese, and understanding is almost like translating English or Japanese into mentalese, depending, of course, on which language you actually speak. But I think that's why we can understand each other, why we can translate, why we can coin new words when we need them. Words and thoughts were the same thing. It would be impossible to coin a new word. Where would the impetus to coin a word come from if you didn't have some idea that you needed to express? And also, when you're speaking and writing, people often have the sense that they didn't express themselves properly. They'll say, oh no, that isn't what I meant to say. Don't misunderstand me. It came out wrong. What I really meant to say was such and such. When you're writing, you get frustrated and you tear up the paper and you say, darn, that sentence wasn't what I meant. I know what I want to say, but I just can't put it into words. And I think there's something real behind that intuition.
Well, that's a subtle feeling when you know that you have an intention that's not quite expressed by the language that you use.
Today, President Trump signed an executive order that labels Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. The order directs officials to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle individuals and groups associating themselves with Antifa and to pursue people who fund their operations.
Did you have any discussions with him that day or at any other time about an afterlife?
I remember sitting in his backyard in his garden one day, and he started talking about God. He said, sometimes I believe in God, sometimes I don't. I think it's 50-50 maybe. But ever since I've had cancer, I've been thinking about it more, and I find myself believing a bit more. Maybe it's because I want to believe in an afterlife, that when you die, it doesn't just all disappear. The wisdom you've accumulated, somehow it lives on. Then he paused for a second and he said, yeah, but sometimes I think it's just like an on-off switch. Click, and you're gone. He said, and paused again, he said, and that's why I don't like putting on-off switches on Apple devices.
This video should terrify you. You see, these students are part of a messed up experiment and this teacher is in on it. Now the teacher gives everybody 3-word puzzles, but here's the setup. This side of the room got words that could be solved, and this side got words that were unsolvable. So this side easily solves the puzzles. And the other side, they're struggling because they can't understand why they just can't get it as easily as the other side. The second word puzzle, same result. They get it easily and they struggle. Now the last puzzle is where it really gets messed up because the last puzzle is actually solvable. But the impossible side, they still couldn't get it. That is called learned helplessness. You see, when you fail a couple times and you see other people succeeding, you start to believe that it's not possible for you. This experiment was able to make half the room feel like they weren't smart enough to do a simple test in just a couple of minutes. Now, isn't that crazy? Just by thinking you can't do something, you can actually make yourself unable to do it. You should never get it twisted. Failure does not mean that you cannot do something. Don't get tricked into thinking that you can't. Maybe the reason why some of your dreams feel impossible is because you were trained to believe that they are. Maybe like these students, you're a victim of learned helplessness.
And you definitely have to get around people who believe anything can be done as well. Because if you're around a bunch of people who will find any reason why things can't be done, it'll never get done. So yeah, there's a lot to that clip for sure.
Okay, so this is at my job last night. Well, this morning, 2 a.m. Somebody drove up by himself. No one's in the car with him. Puts his code in, goes in, and then boom, where that came from.
The Secret Service just dismantled a secret weapon hidden in New York City capable of shutting down every cell phone in the city. And they found it just as world leaders gather for the UN General Assembly. In a series of raids, agents discovered a massive hidden network of over 300 SIM servers and 100,000 SIM cards. This wasn't for making calls, this was a weapon. According to the Secret Service, this network had the potential to disable cell phone towers and essentially shut down the entire cellular network in New York City. Early analysis shows communication between nation-state threat actors and known criminals. And officials are warning this might not be the only one, cautioning it would be unwise to think that there's not other networks across the country.
I think that this urge that some people have, I think many of us at some level have, for consciousness to be something special. Do you think that ultimately comes from our awareness of our own mortality?
Fear of death.
Yeah.
It is the great shared fear. It's the great equalizer. It doesn't matter where you're from, what language you speak. We're afraid of death. There has never been a religion that has survived that has not promised life after death. I could come to you and say, Brian, I've got the greatest religion in the world. And you say, sounds amazing. Oh, one caveat. When you die, it's over. You'd be like, yeah, I know, thanks. We need that. It is the one thing that we have no guarantee of. It's the ultimate paradox. It's the catch-22 because we're all going to learn the answer. We just can't get back to tell anybody.
Yeah,
so
sure.
When we finally know. So we're all super curious about it.
No, I've certainly had these moments when we all now and then think about what will it be like that last moment, wherever our deathbed in a hospital and there's part of me that says, yes, it will be sad, but it will also be potentially deeply exciting because finally the mystery, if there is anything to it, will be revealed.
I might actually have to disagree with them on that one because I don't feel like everybody is fearful of death. The people that accept the fact that that's the only guarantee in life is death, you're not really fearful of death itself. Now, you might be kind of fearful of how you die, but death itself, it's going to happen.
If you're watching this on the 23rd of September, then the rapture didn't happen today. Well, yet. This is 2 Minute Breakdown. Let's talk about why people around the world believe that the rapture is coming today. Okay, so a well-known South African pastor, Joshua Mkhakela, said that he saw a vision of Jesus returning on Rosh Hashanah between the 23rd and 24th of September, which is today and tomorrow. In an interview, he said, "I saw Jesus sitting on his throne and I could hear him very loud and clear saying, 'I am coming soon.'" Now, people have predicted the end of days many times throughout history. A NASA engineer predicted the rapture in 1988. Harold Camping, a radio personality, predicted the rapture in 2011. And you'll probably remember Marshall Applewhite, the Heaven's Gate founder who convinced 38 of his followers that the rapture was coming and to commit suicide by drinking a lethal combination of substances. You get the idea. There have been many predictions about the rapture coming that didn't come to fruition. But each time someone does predict the rapture, there is a group of staunch believers. And this time is no different. After Pastor Joshua Mkhakela made his prediction, the word spread globally. And many believers started to take drastic measures to prepare. People have been sharing rapture preparation tips online. People have been quitting their jobs. One Australian man even went as far as to sell his car, saying that he's catching a flight to heaven in September anyway. Now, there are a few reasons that so many people believe that this time's prediction is true. Firstly, the dates given fall over Rosh Hashanah, which is the new year in Judaism. Secondly, the outbreak of global conflict recently have many believing that the end of days is coming. Thirdly, people believe that Charlie Kirk and his death is a biblical example of one of the 2 witnesses that will die after offering their testimonies during the rapture. Interestingly, many believers are concerned about whether or not their pets will also be raptured. Evidently, this prediction has many people panicked about the end of days. And the fact that it has spread globally has definitely boosted Joshua Mkhakela's influence.
NASA wanted to figure out how to hire more geniuses, so they ran a study, and what they found was wild. In the 1960s, NASA hired a scientist named George Land to find out what makes a genius. So he started testing 5-year-olds using a creativity test that NASA designed. The results? 98% of the kids scored at the genius level. Their ability to solve problems with imagination was off the chart. But here's the twist. He tested them again at age 10. Only 30% scored as creative. At 15, just 12%. As adults, only 2%. Think about that. From 98% down to 2%. What happened? Land said it wasn't biology, it was environment. He believed we learn to be uncreative, that over time we're trained to follow, not imagine, to converge, not explore. You were likely born something of a creative genius. Maybe it's still in you. You just have to unlearn what dimmed it.
So convinced that if people put 50% of the energy that they put into politics, into their own personal growth, that this world would actually be the better world that they were hoping politics would make for them.
Oh
my God. A statue of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump holding hands and lifting their leg up has been placed near the National Mall in Washington, D.C. There are 3 plaques on this statue. The one in the middle is celebrating National Friendship Month, Donald Trump and his closest friend, Jeffrey Epstein. And the other plaques are allegedly the letters that they exchanged between each other. People are clearly frustrated about the Epstein files, but I have so many questions. Who put this up there? Who has the money to put a statue up like this? How do they do it without anyone seeing? Is it even allowed to put up public statues? And if it is, if you take it down, is it a violation of the First Amendment? This is wild.
At the height of his scam in 2008, Bernie Madoff's personal bank account at Chase Manhattan was $5 billion. Despite what you would think he would be doing for him being able to get away with it for so long, all Bernie did with that money that he scammed was just put it into his personal bank account, which means that he could have written you a personal check for $1 billion and then looked you in the eye and say, I can do that 3 more times and still be a billionaire in cash money in my personal checking account. Imagine being like the bank teller who pulls that up whenever he looks at his account.
Bernie Madoff was the scammer of all scammers. I'm talking about he did it bigger than most. $5 billion is nothing to sneeze at.
I didn't realize the super rich were building hidden mansions in case of nuclear war, and it blew my mind learning where they're all located. I figured Texas was going to be a top pick because of their farmland and food supply, but I couldn't have been more wrong. If you're on mainland USA, it turns out the best places are states like Massachusetts and Vermont. But why? I found out New England's atmosphere is unique, in that its wind patterns would constantly push nuclear fallout away to the Atlantic Ocean and beyond. But the ultra-rich are building their compounds in 3 places that make sense when thinking it through. The first is Hawaii, where Mark Zuckerberg built a $270 million fortress alongside other billionaires. It's because Hawaii is the most isolated area in the world with critical infrastructure. The other 2 locations being used for top-secret bunkers are Australia and New Zealand. It's because they're self-sufficient, sparsely populated, and experts say those 2 countries are the safest places to be if things hit the fan. Are you a prepper or more likely to wing it? Let me know what your planning style is, and if it involves Hawaii, you better let me come with.
If you live in America and you don't have millions on millions, it's definitely not cheap or easy to build a bunker under your house. It's not like Sweden where they've got everybody covered.
So you might have heard that only 15% of people are self-aware. This comes from Tasha Eurich, an American psychologist, and you might be hoping that I'll dispel it, and we'll talk about it. The idea that only a small percentage of people will reach self-awareness actually dates back to the 1940s with Lawrence Kohlberg's work in the development of morality, and he was a developmental psychologist. He outlined the way that children develop morality from a young age, starting with punishment and reward. So you shouldn't do something because you might be punished, and you should do something else because you might be rewarded. He gave the example of somebody stealing medication for their sick wife. So in the first stages, people might say that he shouldn't have done that because it's against the law. That's what children say. And then the next stage, they might say that their wife was a nice person, therefore they should do it. So they're considering who that person is and whether or not they're deserving of help. This is, by the way, a very immature view of the world. In the 3rd and 4th stages in which you develop morality, they might think about who that person is and how he feels about his wife. And this is where we start to get selfishness into the equation. Maybe his needs and his wife's needs are more important than the law. Now, where most people end up is at stage 5, where we start to consider peer pressure and the needs of society. What other people tell you is your morality. We can see this a lot with groupthink, where we have groups that are very divided, and when one person tries to say, hey, maybe what you're saying isn't okay, they get beaten down because of it. You can't deviate from the norm. This is the most powerful influence that we have in morality. But stage 6 comes where people recognize universal morality, that every person deserves a basic amount of dignity regardless of who they are. And you'll see people go against that a lot when you talk about torture. Should a governmental body ever say that torture is okay, depending on how bad that person is? If you can think of a certain group that you think torture is okay for, you never reach stage 6. These ideas of what percentage of people are self-aware are very controversial, in part because they're designating a certain degree of morality or value on a person. A lot of people find that upsetting. All I can say is that the next time that you feel that you have an absolute hard line, just take a moment to think and imagine why you think that and if there's any arguments on the other side. Being able to understand how other people feel and why they might feel that way is kind of the first step in maybe becoming self-aware.
Now, when you bring morality into any kind of relationship, it always turns out to be self-interest is the highest priority. Most people are worried about, how they're going to end up on the other side of it. So, it really just depends on who you're dealing with.
Don't talk to mediums, don't talk to psychics, and do not connect to the other side because it's demonic. I hear this all the time, and most people reference this from the Bible saying don't talk to mediums because you're going against God, you're going against the Lord. Well, my understanding, my very limited understanding, you can butcher me in the comments if you want, is that there's only one real reference of an actual experience with the medium in the Bible, and that is with the medium of Endor with King Saul trying to contact his dead homie, who was his right-hand man during battle, Samuel. So Samuel was not alive. King Saul wanted some advice, reached out to a medium. The medium said, hey, we're not supposed to be doing this. He said, let's do it anyway. And yada, yada, yada. His sons died. That's what the medium said was going to happen, and he lost all hope. Tell me if I'm wrong, whatever. I know the Bible also mentions other warnings not to seek out mediums because, again, it's going against God. But what about the idea that it's not referencing an antiquity of all the beautiful experiences? Can you have an evil experience with a demon and summon up bad spirits? Sure, I'm sure that's possible. Buyer beware. There's always bad and good in every experience we have in life, but it's not referencing all the beautiful stories that have not been recorded in ancient times and even to today. I know so many beautiful experiences that people connect to mediums. They were healing, and a high percentage are positive. And again, there's swindlers out there. You can hire a bad accountant, he can screw you up, and maybe you'll end up in jail. I don't know. Find a good accountant. There's always good, there's always bad, and if there are demons, they're the nicest demons I ever met because I've seen so many good experiences. And sure, are the demons lying? That's what everyone else says. Maybe they are, but if the person's healing, then all right, lie away. I don't know what to tell you. All I'm saying is maybe there's a little more beyond the Bible that's not in there written by man. Maybe there's more to explore. And until you have your own experience, you might not ever know. Do your research, talk to people, do your own accounting, if you will. But if you want to rely on just the Bible, that's cool too. Godspeed, for lack of better terms. All I'm saying, there might be more out there until you have an experience of your own. Knock it till you try it or don't try it. Either way, I don't know, man.
Now, I kind of understand what he means because life is full of duality, and hypocrisy. So if you're speaking with somebody and they can only give you the negative in something, ask them to give you the positive. And if they can't give you the positive in something, then that kind of gives you an answer right then and there. You have to look at life in a whole plane. It's not just one. There's both.
Check out their outfits. They're wearing two different dresses from what they were wearing.
This strange footage came from a woman's Ring camera on the night of August 11th, 2025, and it might have been one of the wildest real-time glitches ever caught. At 8:41 p.m., two women who claimed to be missionaries appeared at her door. The homeowner spoke through the camera instead of opening it, but what happened next was unsettling. In the first clip, both women wore matching pink dresses of a distinct style, yet in the second, they appeared in completely different outfits, different colors, patterns, and cuts. As they stepped closer to the porch, their clothing instantly changed before the lens. People couldn't decide if it was a glitch, a trick, or something far stranger.
How do you pronounce this famous author's name? Well, if you said Dr. Seuss, you're wrong, but you're probably not alone because it's one of the most mispronounced words amongst English speakers. Just like this word, which many people pronounce as kibosh or kibosh, but is correctly pronounced as kibosh. Or this word, which some people mispronounce as cachet when it should be pronounced as cash, like the money. Then there's one of the most famously mispronounced words ever. It's not niche, it's niche. But back to my original point. If this wasn't supposed to be pronounced Dr. Seuss, how is it supposed to be pronounced? It's correctly pronounced Seuss. In fact, one of the author's friends wrote a poem about his name that went like this. You're wrong as the deuce, and you shouldn't rejoice. If you're calling him Seuss, he pronounces it Seuss. Eventually, however, so many people were mispronouncing his name that he just went with the anglicized version, Dr. Seuss, and that's what we call him today. Don't stop saying Seuss, because you've said it for a while, but if you want more cool stories like this, check out my newsletter, link in bio.
You know, when you really think about it, Dr. Seuss just sounds better, you know? I don't want to read a book by some guy named Dr. Seuss.
You're going to like this. This is a cool one. So Bob Lazar claimed UFOs ran on a mysterious element known as 115. At the time, scientists said that this was totally impossible, but we might be inching closer to proving him right. So here's what just happened. Researchers at Lawrence Berkeley Lab created a brand new way to make super heavy elements, because up until now, the heaviest elements like 118, also known as organesson, were made using something called calcium-48 beams. But that method hit a dead end, and we literally ran out of the right starting materials. So the team tried something new. They built a titanium-50 beam and fired it at plutonium. And over the course of 22 days, it actually produced livermorium, which is element 116. And that's huge because that means that we might finally have a pathway to reach elements 119, 120, and maybe even a stable version of element 115. So scientists have long predicted something called an island of stability, which is a zone where certain super heavy isotopes don't instantly just fall apart. If we can reach that, these elements could last long enough to actually study in bulk, and that's where the real surprises will come in. So the big question, if one of those stable isotopes turns out to behave the way that Lazar described, which was bending gravity and space-time, would that mean that UFOs really were running on physics that we're only now catching up to? Sure seems that way. Let me know what you think.
We get consumed in digitalization, we end up with real aliens.
Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday.
Whoa.
And right now, you can save
See this?
That's
See,
£200
whoa.
for a family of 4.
See, that's real. That's not AI. Easy. See, that's what happens when you get stuck in a digital world. You're like, I don't even care. I don't even know. We are pulling the roof down. So I think people need to get out and breathe some air, touch some dirt, touch some grass.
There's no good food in America, and people are going to argue with me on this. I have a big organic farm. Food was my first business. There's something called pollen drift, and GMOs is a controversial subject. GMOs had more chance of devastating human health than nuclear war. Plants are sexual reproducing, right? So the pollen drifts up to 10 miles. So if you have food from an organic farm in the United States that's surrounded by GMO crops, odds are it's getting into your food. What I can tell you is in most of Europe, Scandinavia, it's illegal. Almost every person who moves to Europe finds out they can eat bread, they can eat pasta, they can eat pizza, they can eat hamburgers and fries, and you don't gain weight.
You know, I keep hearing that a lot about Europe, and I'm going to actually have to make that trip and see for myself. But all the iTrack fam that's in Europe, let me know if that's a real thing.
Okay, so someone sent me this video of King Charles and people fainting in his presence. And at first I thought, people faint. But then I'm like, wait a minute. How many times have people fainted by being in the presence of King Charles? And what is with that? Now, we know about this strange painting and everything. I'm not going to talk too much about that. But all I will say is the age-old explanation for this is that people tend to faint in the presence of demonic or satanic activity. I will say, if you were to just ask someone what kind of vibes this portrait gives off, I don't know that you could say it's love and light. In fact, it looks bloody. And again, we saw what happens when you invert it, duplicate it, and match them up together. What type of coincidence would that be? And what is with the very interesting history of the royal family anyway? And what makes their bloodline enable them, or rather give them the power to rule over others? I'm not sure I'm really buying this whole story. Side note, by the way, we're all familiar with inheritance taxes, where when someone passes in your family, you don't just get all their money. The government gets a big cut. Of course, taxed here, taxed there, and even taxed when you bite it. Well, King Charles is not paying any inheritance tax from the Queen passing because of a law, and they don't want the royal wealth to be salami sliced away. So once again, we have another example of rules for thee, but not for me. How dare you try to get around paying inheritance tax on your loved one who worked their whole lives to accumulate that money. We don't have to deal with that if we're a royal family member. I just thought that was interesting, and I can tell you that if there was a vote, I would say probably the vast majority of people would say, no, you got to pay it too. Or get rid of the whole thing. Not selective law applyingness.
Let's do a little psychic test. So I'm going to be thinking of a colour, and it will be one of these up here. Now, as I'm thinking of that colour, I want you to just try and tune in and see if one of those colours stands out to you and how you receive it. So if you might see a flash of that colour in your mind, you might hear the word. Just let me know in the comments what colour you get and how you get it. And now for the big reveal. The colour I was thinking about is purple. So if you got that right, congratulations. And follow along for more psychic tests.
All right, see, now I'm getting back on track. The purple just stuck out to me, like right off the bat. So I'm getting back on track. Let me know what you got down in the comments, though. Well, you guys, hey, that's another one in the books. I appreciate you guys for watching another episode with me. If you haven't already, smash that like button for me. Smash that subscribe button, join the iTrack fam. And smash that hype button, too, on the way out of here. I'll catch you on the next one.